Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, so today I will just begin by discussing the question paper first. Then we will discuss some simple programs for doing laboratories because we were doing simple programs in 8086. So we will continue with that topic. But before that, let me also discuss the question paper. So we will begin by discussing the question paper. Your marks are already released. So how many of you have got good marks? How many of you expected more, or if you have some doubts in question paper? So if someone has doubts in question paper, we will go with the discussion of question paper. Otherwise, we will go with our regular 8086 programs. So some doubts in question papers are there or not? Only 36 people have joined. Okay, so let me just begin this discussion of the question paper. So as you can see that the average marks was 5.48 out of 10. So most of you have not performed very good because the average came out to be 5.48, and it's a very poor average. And none of you have got 10 marks. Full 10 marks nobody has got. So 9 is the maximum marks that people have got, and I think 7 people have got 9. So that's good, but nobody has been able to achieve full 10, and the average is very low. It's 50%, 50% of the full marks. So this is a Gaussian curve which involves, which indicates that the possibility of cheating was very low, because had it not been Gaussian, it would have been problematic. So exams are judged like this. If the curve of marks come out to be Gaussian later, then it says that there was a low possibility of cheating. Although there is some skewness if you see on the right hand side. So some cheating might be there because of the online nature of the examination, but at large, I don't think so that much possibility of cheating was there because the design of the paper. Then let us begin with question number one. This was your question number one. Which of the following commands is wrong? So with push instruction, we have already seen that you have to provide the first letter of the register pair, right, to be kept onto the stack. So for that matters, you can see that with push, none of the register pairs is supplied, because had it been the case, the first letter of register pair should have been written. For example, here we have written push E. So push E, E belongs to DE register pair if you talk about register pair, but it is not the first letter. Same is the case with push C, push L, and push A is not any command because you cannot just put the accumulator onto the stack in 8085. Uh, if you want to put the accumulator onto the stack, you have to put the flag register also with that. And what is that command which you use in place of push A to put the contents of flag register and accumulator onto the stack? Anyone?
Push PSW.
Yes, it is push PSW command, right? So push PSW command, by using that, you can push the accumulator onto the stack. And push 05H is also not a valid command, right? So most of the people have given correct answers. 90 plus percent people have marked these correct. So this question needs no discussion as such. Now the second question was, which of the following is right command with right explanation alongside it? So there are some commands which are written here, and some explanation of those commands is also written in the bracket, and we need to identify which is the right one. The first command is mvi a comma m, copies the data from m to a. So why is it wrong? Can somebody tell me?
It should be moved, no?
Yeah, it should be moved because MVI command, it is valid for immediate data. I stands for immediate data, but still these 36% of the people have marked, 31% people have marked it incorrectly. So MVI A comma M will move the data from, it will not move the data from anywhere. It is not a valid command for register pairs. So similar is the case with all of the other commands, MVI A comma M, and the explanation is copies data from A to M, or otherwise it's a 2-byte instruction. This is also not true. And I mean, in first place, if you are using MVI with 2 registers, that is not valid. Then this halt instruction, this halts the computer by resetting everything. So what is wrong in this? Halt instruction, they say it resets the computer by, it restarts the it halts the computer by resetting everything. So what is wrong in this?
So reset resets everything. Halt just halts the program.
Yeah, halt just halts the program. It does not do anything to the values placed in memory or register. It simply halts the program. So still 23% of the people have marked it incorrectly. Then the correct one is STEXD. It copies the content of accumulator to the external memory whose address is in DE pair. So that is the purpose of this command. We studied this command quite a few times in our laboratory also. So here it is going to transfer the contents of accumulator to the external memory whose address is kept in DC register. And this is the 16-bit version of the command STA, and then you provide some address. So here 2 new things are introduced. First is you can just put the address into the register, and because of that you can change the contents of that register pair DE so that it can be used inside the loop to store the accumulator successively into various locations, right? So this one happens to be the correct answer. And obviously the other one, STAXD, copies the content of D to external memory whose address is HL pair, is wrong option, because here DE pair will contain the address, right? So 86% of people have marked it correctly. Rest all, I do not know what they were doing, so they have marked it incorrectly. Okay. Then the next question is carry flag bit is set. This may mean, so when the carry flag bit is set, there are various interpretations of that. And in the lectures we have studied, there were 3 different interpretations of carry flag being set. Some of the interpretations were individually and some of the interpretations were in conjunction with the sign flag, right? So that's what has been asked here in this question. So the first option is there is addition operation and there is a carry out from the MSB. So this could be a valid representation of a carry flag being set. So most of the people have answered it correctly. There is a subtraction operation and borrow is required by MSB. So carry and borrow, essentially that is the same terminology. If you are doing subtraction, it turns to borrow. So both of these are correct. Then there is a subtraction operation and 2's complement of the result is a must to see the correct result. So 2's complement of the, if the subtraction operation is there, then also we discussed that carry flag can be set. It may be set, but not always. Whenever it is set, then you have to take the 2's complement to be able to see the result. But it is not must, because in subtraction, it might also happen that you are subtracting a smaller number from a bigger number. So in that case, you do not need to have the 2's complement. So there is no necessity of taking 2's complement of the result. So this is not a correct answer, because here they are saying that 2's complement is a must. If the result is there, you have to mandatorily take the 2's complement, which is incorrect. Sometimes you have to and sometimes you don't have to. So the next option is correct option, because it does not put this condition there. There is a subtraction operation and 2's complement of the result is not required to see the correct result if sign bit is reset. So if sign bit is reset, that means you have subtracted a smaller number from a bigger number, and that is why this 2's complement is not required. But strangely, only about 30% of people have marked this correctly, right? And then there is a subtraction operation and 2's complement of the result is not required to see the correct result if sign bit is set. So this is obviously wrong answer, because in such a case you would be subtracting a bigger number from a smaller number if the sign bit is reset, and in that case you have to have the 2's complement of the final result. So this is obviously an incorrect answer, right? Then we come to which of the following statements is correct? So there are various statements written about pointer registers and counter registers. We need to identify which of them is correct. So stack pointer increments or decrements by 2 with every instruction. How is it incorrect? Stack pointer increments or decrements by 2 with every instruction. How is this statement incorrect?
Sir, a stack pointer not always increments or decrements with any instruction. It only increment or decrement when we like push or pop.
Yes, when we use push and pop, then it will increment or decrement. With every instruction, it does not increments or decrement. So the first part of the instruction is correct. Whenever I mean stack pointer increments or decrements by 2, but the condition is incorrect. With every instruction is not the true thing. So it has to increment or decrement with pop or push instruction. Is there any other instruction with which it could increment or decrement? Push or pop instruction. Apart from push or pop instruction, stack pointer, can it decrement or increment with any other address, any other command?
INX.
With INX, how? INX simply increments the register pair. Okay, you are saying INX SP, that way it could increment. Okay, that's a valid answer. Is there any other still command is there any other command with which you can increment or decrement stack pointer?
Sir, in case of interrupt,
In case of interrupt, how?
sir, when we call interrupt, then it stores the base address in the
Yeah,
stack.
very nice, very nice. That is also one of the true answers. Is there still any other instruction with which stack pointer could increment or decrement?
SPHL.
SPHL. So it will not increment or decrement there, but it will be changed by the contents of HL register, right? So HL register will be copied into SP register through this SPHL command. Okay, still is there some other command which can be used to change the contents of stack pointer? Call instruction. Call instructions, they also put the base address onto the stack. So there also the stack pointer will change. So it's not that only push and pop instruction will be the only instructions through which stack pointer will change. There are a set of instructions as we have just seen, right? Call instruction. Then there are interrupt. When we write interrupts, it can change. SPHL is there. INX is there. So various forms of instructions are there. Then the second option is stack pointer increments or decrement by 2 with every push and pop instruction respectively. So how is this incorrect? Stack pointer increments or decrements by 2 with every push and pop instruction respectively. Why is this incorrect?
Sir, when we push, then it decrements, not increment.
When you push data onto the stack, it decrements. It does not increment. That is correct because stack, first of all, it populates from the bottom sides of the memory. So if you push something onto the stack, the addresses have to decrease, right? Because addresses are in forward order, but the stack starts populating from the backward order. So if you keep that in mind, it is not very hard to realize that when you push something onto stack, then addresses will decrease and reverse case will happen for the pop instruction, right? Then the right thing is written, stack pointer increments or decrements by 2 with every pop and push instruction respectively. Then program counter increments by a fixed number of byte always with every instruction. This is obviously incorrect because program counter increments or decrements by number of bytes every instruction takes, right? So different instructions have different number of bytes that they occupy in memory. So that is why this program counter, it does not increments by a constant amount. It does not increments by a constant amount. then program counter may increment or decrement by different number of byte with every instruction. This is obviously true. So is there any instruction in 8085 for which the program counter does not have to increase? I mean, the next option is of such nature. Program counter is not affected by NOP operation. So even if NOP is an operation which is not doing anything inside the computer, but it still takes some bytes to be stored inside the external memory, which is 1 byte. So it still will cause the program counter to increment by 1 byte, right? So NOP as such, it does nothing, but it has to be loaded from the external memory to internal memory. And for that duration, whatever number of T states it will take, that is the amount that it will waste for 8085. And it is used to generate timing delays in various programs, right? Because for NOP, you can calculate how much amount of time will it take. And accordingly, in multiples of it, inside a loop, you can generate some delay. So instruction which do not require data transfer to and from external memory consume 0T states. Is it true? Why is it not true? I mean, somebody please explain me that. Instructions which do not require data transfer to and from external memory will consume 0T states.
So data move from internal memory will take 10T state. Move R1 or R2.
No. The thing which is written here is instructions which do not require data transfer to and from the external memory will consume 0T states. I mean, there are instructions like NOP, there is instruction like HLT. They do not have any data that you need to copy from memory or give to the memory. So we discussed this while studying the timing diagrams, that for fetching and giving the data to the memory, they won't consume any T states. But as such, the whole instruction, it is already stored in the external memory. So it has to be loaded inside the CPU for processing into the machine cycle encoding and decoding circuit. So from there, it will definitely consume some T states, even if it is not dealing with the memory. So this is also a wrong option. And strangely, only 0.9% people have marked it, which is a good thing. Okay, this is an easy question. If program status word is equal to EC82H, then so you simply have to decode this 82 into binary form. And since program status word is a combination of accumulator and your flag register in that order, so you can just simply assign some bits to the various locations of these registers and come up with these results. So the equivalent of 8 will be 0100, and the equivalent of 2 would be 0010, right? So the lower byte of that is 82, the lower byte of that will correspond to the flag register, and EC will correspond to your this accumulator thing, right? So that is what is there. And now they are saying, is the parity bit equal to 1? So you can check from the format, right? So the format of the flag register is, first of all, the LSB side you will have carry, then there is a don't care, then there is a auxiliary carry. So the equivalent of 2 happens to be 0010, and at the location number 3, that is at the location number 2, sorry, that is 0, 1 and 2, you have got a 0. So parity bit is not 1. So accordingly, you can check all of this, and you will be able to know that these 3 are the only correct options, right? And I think most of the people have marked them correctly. Then there is no overflow flag in 8085 because, so a lot of people have marked it correctly. So the overflow flag, what is the requirement of overflow flag? So see, if you have only addition and subtraction instruction, carry is a sufficient bit to indicate overflow as well as carry. Because if you add 2 numbers which are of 8 bits, it will never happen that they will become of 16 bits, right? If you add 2 numbers, there is a possibility that they might become of 9 bits because of the carry that comes out of the position. It will never happen that those 2 numbers will if they're of 8 and 8 bits each, they will become of 32 bits or 16 bits. It will never happen. So that is why in 8085 you do not require a flag register. I mean, this overflow register. Flag register is sufficient there. However, in 8086, since you had this basic commands for multiplication and division, so there we require an overflow flag inherently. However, in 8085, if you will make some simple programs of multiplication, etc., you need to take care of the overflow condition yourself, right? So either you design some special flag bits which are there in your program, and you can indicate overflow by using that if you make program in 8085. So we will do that in laboratory today. We will make one program where we will take the overflow condition manually, right? So we will do it in 8086. In 8086, although there is an overflow flag, but we will check it manually also, that if we use only addition and subtraction command, then by implementing multiplication and division, how overflow flag is taken care of. So that's what we will also see. So the correct option here will be 8085 has no multiplication or similar kind of instructions where this requirement of overflow will be there. So the basic instructions that it has is only addition and subtraction, right? And
So-
all the other, yeah, tell me.
So I was saying that if there is no multiplication or similar kind of instruction in 8085,
Mhm.
so the first option should also be correct, because they assume that since there is no multiplication and division, the user would not be able to overflow by writing any program.
No, see, I agree with you. I agree with you that this could be the case, but then, this is written nowhere that the makers of 8085 assume that user will never make such programs. Because if you are designing a computer, user will make complicated programs, right? For example, if you see in your computer only or in your mobile phone, you have apps which can maybe edit your photographs, right? So a computer is only knowing plus and minus and multiplication, division, etc. But we are making whatever we want virtually. So no one can assume by making a computer that this kind of programs will never be written there. And anyway, it's not a technical statement. So for technical examinations, we can't say anything about these philosophical aspects of designing a computer. And had it been the case, I would have told you that the makers of 8085 assumed it like that. So this is written nowhere. And even if it is written somewhere, this is a wrong assumption, because if you are making a computer, should be able to do anything he wants, right? So that is why this is not the correct answer. It is written nowhere, and this just came out of my mind to just fill one option. And for making computers, you cannot put any restrictions that this computer will not be able to do calculation of this kind, right? So that is why this is not the correct option. So in technical papers, if any non-technical option comes, like this one, 8085 is a humble processor. What does it mean? And even 6% people have marked this correctly. I mean, 8085 is not a humble processor. It's a microprocessor which was very aggressive at that point of time. There was no circuit which was as good as it. So in current times, we might say that, okay, at that time, 8085 was not very powerful. But when it came, it was a breakthrough device, right? So it is not at all humble. It's very aggressive for the time it came out, right? So that is why this happens to be the correct answer. Then for the temporary registers W and Z, which of the following operations are not possible? So it was a very easy question, because temporary registers, these are not accessible to the programmer. So none of these commands will work over there. Still, there is a percentage of people who have marked this correctly. But then the correct option is, since W and Z are not accessible to the programmer, so these all commands will be invalid there, right? So if both the status bits S1 and S0 are set, which of the following operations are expected? So it was again a very easy option. You could have seen the truth table for S0 and S1, and the only interpretation is opcode fetch or interrupt acknowledge cycle for S1 and S0 both being 0 together. So that would be opcode fetch or interrupt acknowledge. So for what cases will it be opcode fetch, and for what cases will it be interrupt acknowledge? It cannot indicate two things simultaneously, S1 and S0.
Input is 0 or 1.
Input IO/M bar bit is either 0 or 1. For that
1,
case,
yes, sir.
respectively, we will have opcode fetch or interrupt acknowledge cycle, right? So that was a very simple question. You could have looked into the truth table and just answered it. And then there is this question: identify the assembler directives with correct testimony written about them in brackets. So NOP, it will do no operation. So is it not correct? NOP is not going to do any operation. This is correct. So what is so incorrect about this?
So
What
it's
do
not
you-
assembler directive.
It is not an assembler directive. It is not an assembler directive, right? It's a machine instruction, which is a part of program. Assembler directives are not part of program. So similarly, this ORG is an assembler directive, and it takes 1 byte in the external memory of 8085. So why is it not correct? ORG it is not taking 1 byte in the external memory because it is an assembler directive, and assembler directive are not the part of actual program. And in the externally interfaced memory, only the hex code of something is stored, and ORG has got no hex code. So it is not the part of the actual program. It is just there to guide the assembler to direct the flow of data. So that is why ORG has got no machine code, and that is why it is not stored in the external memory. So there is no question of it taking 1 byte or any amount of byte in external memory. Similarly, begin, it marks the beginning of where to write the first byte of the program. So this is a wrong statement, because begin is for just start. It will tell you where to start executing your program from. So the last option, it says that begin marks the byte location in the external memory from where to begin the execution. Rest all instruction HLT, it directs the assembler. It directs the assembler to stop everything and reset the system. This is obviously incorrect because HLT is not an assembler directive. Then the next statement is HLT halts the 8085 system only. So it halts the 8085 system only, but it is not the assembler directive. So as per the question, this is incorrect because HLT is not an assembler directive, and same is the case with NOP. NOP, this is an assembler directive as well as a part of the instruction set. It cannot be possible. It is not possible because NOP is only part of instruction set. It is not an assembler directive, and nothing can be a assembler directive and a part of instruction set at the same time, right? Then the last question, ALE.
Sir, what is assembler directive?
Assembler directive, like when we studied the Jubin simulator, we saw that there was a problem. If we are writing big programs, then we had to write programs manually in the memory. When I have shown you the kit for microprocessor in one of the laboratories, I have shown you the actual kit for microprocessors, and there you saw that the code is entered in hexadecimal format into the external memory locations, right? So if the program is big enough, then you have to manually enter the hex code. So you can alternatively shift this complete burden to the computer itself, and that can be done by interfacing a device which is called, not interfacing, by making the computer in such a way that it has got an assembler. So whenever you will write your program, you can write your program there, and there are some special instructions like begin and ORG, which you can write to tell the assembler to copy the hex code of that particular program into the external memory location, right? So that is what we mean by assembler. You must have heard terms like compiler and assembler, etc. earlier also, but in in this when we are dealing with the microprocessor, we only have to go up to the level of assembler. We don't need the compiler, because assembler is sufficient for us to direct the data to various parts of the computer, and it will also be able to convert the machine code, I mean the hex code that we write or the mnemonics that we write into the corresponding machine code. So assembler is that kind of device. So have you heard this assembler terminology earlier?
No,
Yes.
sir.
Yes and no simultaneously. That means you have heard it, some people have missed it. So anyway, we in the next lecture we are going to see the assembler and various modes in which programs are written, .com and .exe mode. That is going to be the topic of next lecture, and we will see assembler in detail there, right? Compiler you must have already heard. What is the purpose of compiler?
high level program to low level program.
High level program to low level program. What is that low level program? What do you mean by high level to low level program?
So high level program means the language that we use, and low level program machine language.
Machine language means the assembly language itself, or is it something else?
So 0-1 coding.
0-1 coding. Right. Okay. So we'll see more details about it in the very next lecture. So assembler, compiler, etc. We will study in great details, and we will see two styles of programming: .com and .exe mode. So it will become more clear there, right? So the last question was ALE is usually activated in clock cycle, and it is T1 state. Some of the other people have also marked it incorrectly, but ALE is usually activated in T1 state because when an instruction begins, if it has to deal with the externally interfaced memory, we usually supply the address on the address lines, and that's when we want it to be locked. So that happens at the beginning of every instruction if you see the T states of that. So it is usually activated in the T1 state of a machine cycle, right? Instruction cycle rather. So that is the correct answer for this. So any other doubts in this question paper? Or the biased nature of the paper? Did you feel that there was a possibility of cheating and others have cheated and because of that you haven't? Because the curve that finally came out of your marks is normally distributed, it is Gaussian, so it indicates that there is a low possibility of cheating. So there is a complete theory behind how to detect whether cheating has happened in an examination. If the distribution of marks is nearly Gaussian, there is no possibility of cheating or less possibility of cheating. And even if it had happened, it hasn't impacted the results. That's what the interpretation of a Gaussian curve. And if you get 2 peaks or 3 peaks, there is a significant amount of cheating. It usually happened when we took examination online in the first mode. There were multiple peaks in the distribution of marks, and which was obvious because you had got access to the phones while doing your examination for the first time. So then we changed our system to make it more robust, and I guess it has done a fairly good job. So any other doubts in the question paper? Anyone? Okay, so we will start with the programs that we were doing. So we have completed the register data transfer, addition of two numbers, and conditional and unconditional jump statements. So let us in today's lecture see this code number 4 and code number 5, where we will see how to make loops with or without using the dedicated looping commands, right? So in the last lecture, we had completed these three parts: register data transfer, addition of two numbers, and conditional and unconditional jump statements. So and in the laboratory also, we had made some programs by using them. So one of the simple programs that we made was Fibonacci series. And today we are going to start with that only because we want to learn looping, and looping can be done in two ways here. So first is by using jump statements, which is the way we used to do it in 8085 computer. And the second way is by using dedicated looping commands. So we are going to see these two things first, and then we will see how stack is used in 8086. It is little more different as compared to 8085, and then we will see some indexing techniques. So these four programs we will try to cover in today's session, and in the laboratory we will make programs regarding those. So let me just load this program number 4, loop using jump statement. Yeah, so this is a simple program where we have just made the Fibonacci series, and we have made it without using any dedicated loop command. So you have already made it in the last laboratory. This is just a repetition of that. So first of all, we have initialized the data segment by the base address as 5000. So the actual physical address will definitely be 50,000, right? So first of all, it was moved to AX register, and then AX was copied into DS, because these segment registers, we cannot just move data in the immediate mode there, right? So this is a rule in 8086. Then, I want to start my Fibonacci series from offset location 0004. So this is the offset location, which is 0004. And here I want to store the first element of the Fibonacci series, which happens to be 00. So you can see in the next statement, move in brackets SI and 00H. So whenever you write in brackets SI, so whatever is the content of SI at that particular offset address in the external memory, in this corresponding segment which you have initialized, that is DS, that 00 will be stored, right? So the meaning of this bracket SI is at the offset address of 0004 in the external memory. So the offset address in which segment? So the segment has to be this one, the segment that you have initialized, data segment, because SI can only be used with data segment, right? And it can also be used with extra segment, but here we are not using extra segment. So since we have only initialized this data segment, so it will be, kept in data segment only. So we will see the cases where this data segment and extra segment, they are also simultaneously initialized and SI register is used. So how to just remove that ambiguity with which SI register will be used. So we will see one such case in the laboratory. So move, then the next first byte of data is 00H, which is stored at 0004 offset address. At the next location, which is 0005, we want to store 01H. So it can be done like this also. Directly also you can do move 0005H, 01H. So in this case, whatever is the address that you have mentioned here of 2 bytes, the data will be moved there. So you can see that here no register is involved as such. You can directly do this, and in your program, it will be kept to the appropriate address, right? Then you want to generate, say, first 8 numbers of the Fibonacci series. So you are initializing the counter, and theoretically you can just initialize counter in any register. But if it is not a predefined register, which I will tell you in the next program, which register should be used, then the counter's housekeeping work has to be done by you. What is housekeeping for counter? You have to decrement it or increment it inside the loop depending upon your logic of the program. However, if you use a predefined register, which we will see happens to be the C register or CX register, the counter will be the housekeeping work for the counter will be done by the program itself. So now you have designed a loop which is from label 1, and here is the logic written for Fibonacci series. So since you have made it on the last turn in the laboratory, so I'm not again elaborating it. The only point to note here is that you have to manually decrement the value of this BL register. Once you are done with all the operations, so you have decreased this counter manually, DECBL. It will decrement the counter, and you have to compare this counter with 00 because you want to design it for 8 number of elements. So after you just run this counter, after you run this loop, this BL has to be decremented one by one, and it has to be compared with 00 always, so that whenever this condition happens to be true, you will come out of the loop, right? So we have discussed the CMP command on the last step. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So CMP command was discussed on the last term, so I am not elaborating it here. This is the traditional way of writing the loops, but with advent of 8086, you have some default counters. So let me just open that program. The program is the same. We are again going to design a Fibonacci series in the exact same way, but now we will be using the CX register as counter register. So as I told you, when we studied the register stack of 8086, that there will be general purpose registers AX, BX, CX, and DX. They will be of 16 bits, but there are some special purposes assigned to those registers for very specific command. So one such register is CX register, And in CX register, you can initialize the counter. The advantage of initializing counter in CX register is the housekeeping work for CX. That is, it has to be decremented inside the loop. Then that work will be done automatically by the microprocessor. But then you cannot make loops through those jump commands, because jump commands are essentially not loop commands. Jump commands are the commands where you will simply directing the control from one part of the program to other part of the control of the program, either conditionally or unconditionally. So they cannot be treated as looping instructions here. If you want to use CX register as counter, then for looping, you have to use this loop command at the end. In the earlier program, you were using the jump command. So the jump command is not to be used there. You have to use loop command. What will loop command do? It will check the contents of CX register. If the contents of CX register becomes equal to 0000H, then it will come out of this particular loop. Otherwise, it will keep on moving to this particular label. And you can also notice that you do not have to decrement this CX register in your program. This DEC SI is for some other purpose, but for this CX register, you do not have to manually decrement it. So with loop, it will automatically happen. CX register will automatically be decremented by 1 every time. And once this condition happens such that the CX register becomes equal to 0, you won't jump to label, rather you will come out of this loop. So this is the only point of difference that we wanted to note in this particular program. So is the usage of dedicated loop command clear to everyone? Is the usage of loop command clear to everyone? It serves two purposes. First is it decrements the CX register automatically by itself, not any other register, only CX register. And the second thing is it will decrement first of all, and then it will also do the operation of comparison of CX with 0. So by default, these things will happen. So is this clear to everyone? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is a fairly simple command, but it will come very handy because you do not have to do CMP operation and the operation of subtraction of the CX register by 1 every time, right? So now let's move to the next program. After looping, we have demo of this stack, right? So a lot of content is written on the screen in green color, which is your comment line. So you don't have to look at that. We will discuss it anyway. So the only lines of codes are the codes which are written in blue. So here you can see that if you want to use the stack segment, so first of all, we have initialized the stack segment, move AX 5000H and move SS, AX. So this way your stack segment is initialized. Now, once your stack segment is initialized, we all know that stack will start populating from the bottom side of the memory. Now here you have to do the initialization of stack segment, and the last address of that stack segment will be the top of the stack. Is it or is it not? The last address has to be the top of the stack. But then there is a problem. If we initialize the stack segment, say from 5000H, then the last location of this will be, the last physical location of this will be what?
FFFF.
FFFF will be for the case of a 16-bit address, but the physical address is of 20 bits. So what is the last location of the stack which is initialized in this particular case? Actual physical address. The beginning of the stack is 5000, base address. So how do you calculate the last address? First of all, let us calculate the actual base address, I mean the physical address. So what will it be? It will be 50,000, right? 50,000. So because you have to append one more zero after this 5,000. And what will be the last location then? Because the size of any segment could be at max 64 kilobytes. So if we are using the full stack segment, the last location will be 5 plus 64 kilobytes, which is FFFF. So 50,000 plus FFFF in hexadecimal will result in 5 FFFF. So that is the last location. Now here we have calculated it very easily because the number or the base address that we begin with was having a lot of zeros. But if you begin your stack segment from any random address, let us say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you assume that as the base address, then to be able to calculate the actual physical address, it will be requiring some calculations. So do we have to calculate this last address of stack every time? The answer is no, because the whole sole purpose of defining the segments was this: you will be defining the base address of the segment and forget that segment. After that, the only thing that you have to deal with is the offset address. So still, for dealing with stack, you will be only dealing with the last address, which is FFFF, right? The last address will be FFFF in terms of the offset address. You don't have to deal with the actual physical address, which happens to be 5FFFF, because for programmer only 16-bit registers are accessible. And once you define the base address of any segment, you can conveniently forget it, because to be able to deal with that segment, you don't have to calculate the last address or any address for that matters every time. You only have to calculate the offset addresses. And offset addresses are similar to 8085, right? So now in these two registers, BX and CX, we have moved some 16-bit data, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8 in BX and CX registers. And then here, by using these push commands, push BX and push CX, you are pushing some bytes onto the stack. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, it will be kept onto the stack by using this push BX command. And when you will copy the contents from BX to some memory location, then definitely they will be copied in the little endian fashion. And what is little endian fashion? The higher byte at higher order address and lower byte at lower order address. So by using this push BX command, these 2 bytes will be kept onto the stack. Similarly, this push command is also there for CX register. You can push it onto the stack, and then after that you are popping it, because you have pushed two words into the stack, so you are just popping it 2 number of times. So I have written this 2 number of times here and 2 number of times here, because what will happen is we usually make an error while making function calls or writing the programs for interrupts. So whenever we write programs for function calls, what will happen is the return address will be automatically kept onto the stack, as it happened in 8085 also. So inside a function, if we make odd numbers of push and pop instructions, then when you use the return statement, in that case, your return statement will not be proper, because if you the base address of the return address of your function is already kept onto the stack, right? And after that, inside the function that you have written, if you are making unequal number of pairing of push and pop instructions, then the return statement from the function will be confused. It will not be confused, it will not be taking the actual address to return, because you have used unequal number of push and pop instructions. So the correct retrieval address will not be obtained. So please make it a point, inside the function, if you are using a push or pop statement, it has to be used in pairs. Even if you have a requirement of only pushing the data or popping the data to and from the stack, it should be done once, and there should be one dummy command which should be there to balance the push or the pop instruction, by keeping in mind that you do not pop out the actual return address sometime and forget it, because then your function will not return to the correct location. So inside the function calls, or in whenever we will write programs for interrupts, please make sure to write equal number of push and pop instructions. However, for your main program, you can you do not have to follow this thing. So this is not implemented as a law in 8086, but we have to take care of that manually, right? So let us just run this program and see what contents will be changed. So this is my program, and the points that we want to note here are how the changes happen in stack. So stack can be seen by clicking at this stack tab also, or otherwise you have an access to this memory, and you can just put whatever address you want here, and you can just see the stack from there. But it is convenient to see stack in this particular format. So one particular point to note about this stack in this representation is that the addresses that you see from here, if you notice it from here, you have got addresses from FFFF0, FFFF2, FFFF4, 6, and so on. So these addresses, they are they are with a difference of one address. I mean, after 2 you will have 4, so after 4 you will have 6, after 6 you will have 8. So there is an addition of 2 in that, right? And the data locations where you are keeping the data, instead of being of 1 byte, they are now of 2 byte, right? So for location FFF2, if you see here, the data will be at these first 2 hexadecimal digits, and for location FFFF3, this will be the data, the later byte of this, right? So after that, this FFF4 address begins, and you will have 2 bytes which are dedicated there, and this FFF5 is not mentioned in address because FFF5 is here. So this is done because you know that this stack will be operating in 2 bytes fashion or 16-bit fashion. So in this representation, stack has been shown like this. So let me just run this simple program and let's see what changes happens here. So at the beginning, as you can notice that this stack pointer always points to FFFE because the stack is of essentially 2 bytes. It operates in 2 bytes. So that is why the first offset address or the top of the stack will be FFFE. So that FFFF and FFFE are the locations which will be holding the first data, which will be the top of the stack, and after that the next thing will come, right? So let me just run this code and let us see what happens. So for the first 2 steps, you will be only able to initialize this stack segment. So here a stack segment is initialized. Then now let us see what happens when this BX1234H is moved. So simply the data will be moved into the BX and CX register 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8. Now this is an important command, push BX. So when you will do push BX, what change do you expect here? Where will this 1, 2, 3, 4 appear? Because you are just first pushing BX, and the top of the stack happens to be at FFFE. So after executing this 1, 2, 3, 4, after executing this push BX command, let us see what happens. Here you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4 has been filled in FFFC, right? FFFC address, and FFFE was the top of the stack. So FFFF and FFFE were involved in that particular thing, and FFFC location is filled. So 1, 2 is for that location, and 3, 4 is for the very next location, right? So if we'll proceed in this particular way, CX register's content will also be there, FFFA, right? So you can see that the addresses are increasing in this particular order. But however, if you see the actual memory, it should have been inverted. So it is kept in inverted form because we need to deal with the stack, and the last location, that is the top of the stack, has been kept here, right? So that is why the addresses, they appear in decreasing order. If you see the actual memory, it should have been in the downward fashion. I mean, starting from this particular location and going to the upward location. So stack has been shown inverted in this particular notation, right? So with the pop instructions, you can pop out the same data into this DX register one by one. So let us see by executing 1. So in DX register, you have got 5, 6, 7, 8 because stack, in that stack, if you put something at the end, it will be retrieved first. So CX registers content were pushed at the end. So they were 5, 6, 7, 8. So they had been retrieved first. But you can notice that 5, 6, 7, 8 has not been erased from the memory even after retrieval. Because as I told you that after retrieval, the top of stack has been pointing to FFFC, which is this particular location. And the rest of the other values, they are treated as garbage values, and there is no point in deleting garbage values because it will consume additional T states and it will be a burden to the processor. So that is why it has not been erased from here. And similarly, you can also take this data 1, 2, 3, 4, and again the stack will be going back to the FFFE location. And after that, the program will come to an halt. Now, in the same program, if you will write 3 pop statements, what do you expect to happen? Will it give you an error or not? In the same program,
No, sir.
Why will it not give you an error?
Because it is cyclic.
Because it is cyclic in nature. So the segments that you have seen in 8086 are cyclic in nature, and that is why it won't give you any error. However, if you deal with stack in 8085, in that case, you can't do this thing because there the memory is not cyclic in nature, right? So in 8086 this can happen. If you use unequal, if you use 3 pop statements here, still the stack will work, but it will go to the first location in order, right? So this is about stacks. We will make some small programs with stack in today's lab also. And let us move to this indexing program, which is very simple. And now this is a very important program where we are seeing how to access 1 byte of memory. Either we are writing or reading from it, how to access that byte. But there are various ways to do that. So they will help you create single loop variables, double loop variables, triple loop variables. So this happens, in some programs you might need double for loops, or in some programs you might need triple for loops. So how is it implemented in 8086? Let's see that. So that can be done through indexing. So here in this program, what is my aim? I am first of all going to initialize my data segment. And by using various indexing modes, various ways of accessing a particular byte in the memory, I am just trying to put some data onto those locations. So by these first 2 lines, I have just initialized my data segment to physical address of 50,000 or base address of 5,000. And after that, I want to move some data into the location, into the offset address 0001. So one conventional way is you can just put SI here, keep the value of offset address in it, and then just write this command in bracket SI and 90H, which is my data. It can be moved to that particular location, right? So this is very conventional way, which we have seen up till now. Now there are other ways also. Now at location after 0001, which is 0002, let me try to store 91H, right? So now I will be using a newer way. So here you can write it like this: move in brackets SI and in brackets 01H and comma 91H. So what will it do is it will sum up the contents of SI and 01 and then calculate the actual offset address. After the offset address has been calculated, it will append a 0 after this 5,000 and it will add that offset address to that and it will calculate the actual physical address, and then it will move the value of 91H to that particular location, right? So this cannot be done indefinitely. You cannot have SI and then in one big bracket 01H, another big bracket 02H. It cannot be done like that. It can only be done with this one additional bracket, right? So SI and then 01H. So the advantage that you get here is the contents of SI are not changed, but this is an offset to the offset, right? SI contains the offset address in the data segment, but SI itself is the offset address. Now this 01 is actually offset to the offset, right? So that way also you can move your data. The advantage is the content of SI will not be changed, right? And the second way is like this. If you want to now move the data of 92H to the next location, which is 0003 location, after this. So you can do it like this: move in brackets SI and in brackets 0002H and 92H. So the only point of difference here is earlier you were using 1 byte data in bracket. Now you are using 2 byte data in bracket. So this is the second offset is also called as displacement. The second offset is also called as displacement. So in one case you were using 8-bit displacement, and in another case you can also use 16-bit displacement. This will come very handy when you will try to make double loops where the second index is usually fixed, right? So this can be done there. Now in the next location, let us say I want to store 93H. So instead of using this kind of notation, I am using another thing. In BX register, I have moved a value of 0003H. So the 93H, it will be moved to this location. This BX register will have content of 0003S, SI which already had content of 0001H. So by adding these 2 registers, you will be getting 0004H, and that particular location we are trying to move this value of 93H, right? So here, you are using two offsets. One is the main offset, second is the displacement, but now the displacement happens to be a register itself, and there is a restriction. You can use only BX or BP pair as the first register, and SI or DI has this second place. So it has to be used in this order only: BX, SI, I mean BX or BP first and SI or DI second, right? So the order cannot be interchanged, and only these kind of registers have to be used, right? So 93H can be moved there. So this is also double indexing, but the second one will become variable. Similarly, as compared to double indexing, you can also have this triple indexing where you can use BX, SI and a 8-bit offset, or BX, SI and a 16-bit offset. So there you can do this triple indexing. But there is a bug in this particular 8086 simulator that it won't allow this BP register to be placed here. Although theoretically you can use BX or BP both here interchangeably, but it won't allow BP register to be used here. Right? So this is a bug, we should keep it in mind. Theoretically BP can be used, but 8086 EMU won't allow BP to be used in this particular place. So these are some simple ways of indexing, and in today's lab we will try to make a double loop, and we will try to access things by using this particular concept, right? So is this clear to everyone? It's a very simple thing, I guess. Is indexing clear to everyone? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so any doubts in this lecture? It was a fairly simple lecture where I have shown you some very simple commands, and today we will be going to use them in laboratory sessions, right? Okay, so if there are no doubts, I'm closing the session.
Sir,
Yeah, tell me.
sir, in triple indexing, if we use 2 times BX and 1 time SI, so if it will
No,
done.
that is not possible. That is not possible. The indexing can be done only in these ways that I have shown here. I mean, you can use one BX, one SI, and one this displacement. You cannot use two BX, three SI, and five displacement. It is not possible. You can only use up to triple indexing, and the first location has to be filled either by BX or BP theoretically, and second has to be filled by either SI or DI, and the third has to be a displacement only, either 8-bit or 16-bit. So you cannot interchange their order or increase or decrease the number of registers. Is it clear?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we will make more programs and it will become clear to us in laboratory session today. Okay, so any other doubts? Okay, so I'm closing the session.